Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Casting for Two, episode number 11. Before I started talking, I was trying to think of a bit to do to get you ready for the episode. And I'm not saying that I'm washed up or anything, but I just didn't have one. I make this off the top of my head. Make this up off the top of my head. I said it wrong because it's off the top of my head. I don't know. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the episode. Today, my guest is the wonderful, delightful writer, director, filmmaker / barbecue enthusiast, Mr. Michael Mohan. And if you haven't heard of him, you should go out there, Vimeo, because only cool people do Vimeo, and he's a cool person. He's cool people. Search Google Michael Mohan, or go to michaelmohan.com, Twitter at Michael Mohan, watch his short films. But today, I really wanted to get him on the show for a feature he did called Save the Date. It's not Saved by the Date, because that's a funny sitcom. Save the Date stars Lizzie Kaplan, Mark Webber, Martin Starr, Allison Brie. It's an all-around just great film. And I was very excited after weeks of playing email tag that I could finally get him on the show. And this is the conversation we had. So sit back, relax, and listen to the sweet sounds of Chris and Michael talk about stuff, which is a great bio for the podcast. But as always, cue the music, Chris. Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, Michael, what's going on?
Not much. You sound really good. You have like a really good microphone or something.
Yeah, I've been podcasting for 2 years now, and so yeah, one of the things I needed to get was a microphone. So
it's a really good one. Do I sound? I'm using my iPhone headphones. Do I sound all right?
Yeah, you sound good. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Sorry for taking a while to figure out my schedule, but thanks for being so flexible.
Oh yeah, no problem. I get people's schedules are all over the place, and I just really wanted to talk to you, so I had no problem waiting.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. But how's it going?
It's going. It's really hot. Which I'm sure you're in San Antonio, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's probably normal weather for what it's like there, I would assume. What's the weather like there?
It's usually in the 90s. It's kind of come down. Well, it's the low 90s, but it's come down a lot. So
nice. Well, wait. So if you're in San Antonio, that means that you're like an hour and a half away from Lockhart, right? Because that's like halfway between you and Austin. Is that right?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh man, you've been to Lockhart before? I'm assuming.
No.
You've never? Oh, dude,
no.
You should spend your afternoon after we talk. You should go there. It is like the most amazing barbecue. I don't know if you eat meat, but if you do, there's a lot of it there, and it's incredible. We went a couple years ago. The production designers that I work with, Cindy and Michelle, we were at South by, and we took this detour to go to Lockhart, and it was like life-changing barbecue. Like, it was like one of those things where I had heard people talking about what barbecue was, and it's like, you have, here or where I grew up, it's like you have barbecue, and it's like, oh yeah, barbecue's good, but then you go there and you're like, oh, this is barbecue, in the same way that like like people who are like really into coffee, they're like, oh, you don't know, what you drink is not coffee, you know, and then you have like a taste of some sort of pour over specialty single whatever roasted there, and then like it changes your perception of what coffee is, and that's what Lockhart sort of changed what I thought barbecue was and could be. So
wow, okay,
yeah, it is absolutely worth a diversion one afternoon to go out there and get some barbecue. Anyway, sorry, this is like not at all relevant.
Well, my podcast is about barbecue.
Oh, it is. Oh,
yeah. So we're good.
Right.
We're good.
Good.
No, I've only been here in San Antonio for about maybe a year and a half now. Mm-hmm. So I haven't yet ventured out to a whole lot of places. I've only been to Austin like twice so far.
Wow. Oh, crazy. Where were you before?
Before I was in Oregon.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome.
So, and Salem. I went to Portland a lot and had jobs up there, stuff like that. But it's an adjustment, just because I still feel like the Pacific Northwest is still with me.
Yeah. Where did you grow? Did you grow up over there, or?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in El Paso, Texas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then my dad got a job offer in Salem, Oregon, working with the state. So I moved there, you know, in my prime childhood, going to teen years. And I really like it up there. I'll probably return one day, though.
Yeah, Portland's just it's so beautiful, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny, whenever I go to Portland or whenever I've talked to people who lived in Austin, and when I went to Austin, it reminds me exactly like Portland.
Right, yeah, it's got that, like, sort of slackery, hipstery vibe.
Right, yeah, that like weird, just like, I don't know, it just reminds me so much of it, so.
Yeah, it's almost like, because I have a lot of friends that live in Austin, I have a few friends in Portland, and it's almost like, it's like these utopian, you know, artist communities where like people have like big aspirations in Portland and Austin, and they're able to achieve them on a local level to this incredible degree, you know, where like the film scene in Austin is just so vibrant right now. And it's also, you know, it's as insular as it is vibrant, you know?
Yeah.
But slowly but surely they're starting to, like, you know, break down the boundary. Like it's hitting the world stage, the films that are created there. And you know, I think with Portlandia especially, I feel like that's really like sort of put Portland on the map in terms of, you know, just what's going on there too, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I know like Gus Van Sant has a production company up there.
Yeah, I think he's based there primarily. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, all the shows that shoot up there and stuff like that. So whenever because I have a bunch of Canadian friends too, and they always brag when you know, we see a movie and we play the game Guess What Part of Canada it's shot in.
Right.
And whenever, you know, there's an Oregon movie, I always like to point that out.
Right. Yeah, I remember with Canada, it's like there was a period of time where like everything was shot there, and like the one that I remember most was, I think, Rumble in the Bronx. You know, it's Rumble in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And like there are mountains in the background.
The mountains of New York are in the background.
Of the Bronx. Yeah. Anyway, so how did you hear about me or my work or my stuff?
So I knew about the film Save the Date because I'm a huge Community fan, so I follow, you know, all the castmates on Twitter. And Allison Brie was just talking about a movie that she was in, Save the Date, with Martin Starr. I'm a huge Freaks and Geeks fan. Lizzie Kaplan, she should be in everything, really.
Right. Absolutely.
And so I heard about that movie. I saw the trailer, and then it was just on TV one day on like Showtime or something like that. And I said, "Oh, it's that one movie. I have to watch it." Because this was during the summertime. Because what I do is, you know, big summer blockbuster movies, and I'm a huge movie watcher. And for every big blockbuster movie, I always have to go back and watch smaller indie films.
Right. Balance it out.
Exactly, yeah. Life's all about balance. So I saw this movie and I said, well, I'm going to watch this right now anyway, so let's do it. And I was just watching it and I was just so blown away with the movie, the acting, the story, to the point where it was like 1, 2 in the morning and I had to go to sleep. And I just could not go to sleep. I was just still thinking about the movie.
Oh, thanks, man.
And so naturally, what I do when I see a movie I like, I go on the Google and try to learn, who did it and all that. So,
isn't that amazing? I feel like because the film has had this sort of, it absolutely is like more of a cult thing than a mainstream thing, and I feel like 99% of the people that have heard of the film or have seen the film it's because of Twitter.
Right, yeah.
Which is just insane to think. Yeah. So what questions do you have? How can I? Yeah.
Well, I mean, before we talk about Save the Day, I'd like to learn a little about you, how you got into film and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. The Cliff Notes version of this is I grew up in southeastern Massachusetts, and was obsessed with movies ever since seeing Back to the Future. I was 5 when Back to the Future came out, and pretty much at that moment I decided I wanted to work in movies.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, the TV program, the TV show, the channel Bravo, before Real Housewives dominated that network, they used to actually play like independent films late at night on the weekends. And so that was where I sort of discovered films like Slacker and Kicking and Screaming and Walking and Talking. And it was like this whole new world of movies that I didn't really knew existed. These films felt like actually really personal, and they felt like they were made by humans, and it was like just a really eye-opening thing for me to watch these, to like be up super late past my bedtime and watch these movies and record them on VHS and go back and rewatch them. And so when I graduated, I moved to Orange County to go to school. And my junior year, I didn't have any connections to the film industry whatsoever. And my junior year, they used to do test screenings of movies down in Orange that, if you were a film student, you weren't supposed to go to them. But because they were trying to get people who wouldn't write reviews on Ain't It Cool News or whatever, back when that was, a bigger site. And what ended up happening was I got handed a flyer for a test screening of the movie Super Troopers, right? Okay. And at the time, nobody knew what that movie was. And I looked at the flyer, I was like, I'm not seeing a movie with the name Super Troopers. It's like a kid's movie. And so I did some research, and I learned that the film had been at Sundance and that Fox Searchlight was picking it up. And so what I did was I snuck into the screening, and I wanted to be like, sometimes they take 12 people to be a focus group, and I really wanted to be in the focus group because I was like, I'm going to talk my way into an internship, because that's all I got. But I didn't get picked to be in the focus group, and I went to see the movie, and then I was looking for anybody I could talk to there at the screening, and I couldn't find anybody. And there was this woman that was handing out flyers on the way out, and it said, if you have any additional thoughts on Super Troopers, email them to Jennifer blah 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 at fox.com, right? And so I was like, all right, I've got an email address from someone who works at Fox Searchlight, and based on all these films that I grew up loving, that's where I want to eventually get in. And so I stayed up really late at night. And granted, I'm a junior in college, so I don't know anything, but I write the most pompous email that's just telling them exactly how they needed to change the movie, and you got to reshoot the ending, bring back the funny guys from the beginning, and all this stuff. And then at the bottom of this email I wrote, and by the way, I'm a film student, I snuck into your screening. It is in your best interest to call me tomorrow and offer me an internship. and of course, because I didn't know, I didn't know what I was doing, and I figured why not? I had nothing to lose. And so I went to, I got 2 hours of sleep, went to class the next morning. And when I got back to my apartment, and this was people were just starting to get cell phones, so I didn't have a cell phone. There were all these messages, there was a message from the marketing department, from a woman who worked in creative advertising, and a development executive. All three of them, apparently the email was sent to the whole company. They were like, look at this crazy person. And so they brought me in, and I was like on the studio lot and sort of like met with all these people there at Searchlight, and really lucked out because like back then they had just started this subdivision that I don't think exists anymore. It was called Fox Search Lab, and they made short films with new directors. And so the idea was like to groom them for the studio system. And the woman who was running it had just started, and she didn't have an assistant or anybody. And so I sort of like went in there and made myself like, I was like, I'm going to be your assistant. I'm just going to do everything, like whatever you need done, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And so like what was an internship for 2 weeks became a part-time job. And so I was commuting from Orange County up to LA like 3 days a week. Through senior year, and then it turned into a full-time job after I graduated from school. So I was like an assistant, and I worked there for 4 years, and they eventually shut it down. And one of the cool like things I did back then was like my boss was a screener for Sundance, so she would watch the short films. And rate them and whatnot. And sometimes she would give me, and back then it was like bins of VHS tapes, So every once in a while she'd hand me a bin of VHS tapes, and I'd go home and I'd watch. I'd like actually borrow. That's right, I forgot about this. I'd have to borrow like a special VCR that could play PAL.
Oh, okay,
yeah, like
and,
PAL
region
tapes.
region locked or unregion locked or something like that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like region locked because this is a tape. This is analog. So so I'd bring home the VCR, I'd hook it up, and I'd watch all these films, and it was like super eye-opening because in film school you're only comparing yourself to your peers and to what your teachers are showing you. But when you're looking at like literally, like I remember usually each year I'd watch close to like 300 or 350 short films, and that's a lot. You're getting a sense of like a larger world, of what's getting submitted and what's getting in and what's not getting in, and seeing what's good and seeing what's bad, and seeing what's great, but there's a few things holding it back, and anyway, after I got laid off from Searchlight, at the Sundance labs, like the screenwriting and directing labs, the assistant there was leaving at the exact same time. And so I was able to sort of get a job over there working for this legendary woman named Michelle Satter, who like started the Sundance writing and directing labs. Like she's responsible for like reading Reservoir Dogs and being like, oh, this guy's good. I'm going to help him make this movie. Or like Hard Eight, Paul Thomas Anderson, like, and like half of the films that I had taped off of Bravo as a kid, like had been developed through the labs, like Walking and Talking and all those, Bottle Rocket. And so, so I was like super low on the totem pole. Like I was an assistant, and I made coffee and I popped the popcorn at the labs. Like I got to go to Utah for the month of June every year to like, whatever, set up chairs and get pastries for the advisors and whatnot. But it was really cool. And like basically how the labs work is it's a workshop. And so for like the director's lab, they take these projects and they go there and they shoot scenes from their work in progress scripts, like on a makeshift stage. And it's one of those situations where like you're directing an actor and it doesn't count, like it's just literally a workshop. And, and if someone's there directing an actor, they can be like, oh man, if only I knew what Philip Seymour Hoffman would say right now. They can turn around and be like, hey, Philip Seymour Hoffman, come over here and tell me what you would do. And so, for me, it was invaluable. I mean, I didn't go through the program. I wasn't a filmmaker, but I got to like observe everything and just soak it all in. And it was remarkable. And so, anyway, it was eventually, long story short, I was still making. Sorry, this is such a long version of the story.
No, it's all good. Keep going.
So anyway, while this was all happening for all these 8 years, I was just constantly making short films and music videos on nights and weekends. And I had this sort of situation where, this was back before everybody had a camera. Back then I actually had access to camera and editing software, and it didn't just come with your laptop. And so any actors who would come to me who wanted like stuff for their reel, I would write and shoot and edit like short films with them. So like no matter what the budget was, if an actor came to me with like $50, or if an actor came to me with like, $30,000, I would make these films, and they were all of like varying quality, and they were, they were, the function was more for the actor than for me, but I got to, learn about like how to talk to actors, how to talk to experienced actors, how to talk to inexperienced actors, how to, what to do with the camera, stuff like that. That was really good. It just created a huge body of work, none of which was me. You know what I mean? And I remember there's this one moment in when I was in the back of the room during a workshop that Stuart Stern was leading, and Stuart Stern wrote Rebel Without a Cause. It's like he's a legend,
right? Yeah.
And he was talking about, like, he was just basically saying to everybody, he's like, look, not everybody gets the chance to make movies. Like, if you get one movie made, you are so lucky. And so make sure you really have something to say and that it's personal, because then you know that what you're bringing to the table is unique to you and not just, don't make movies that other people could make, is the very oversimplified version of it. And so I realized that everything I had been doing up to that point was, they were just exercises. They weren't films. And when I got back from the labs, like the two friends of mine that we were planning on making this horror movie for a while, and we had financing and everything. We sat down, we were just like, we don't want to make this movie. Like, we don't like horror movies. Like, the only reason doing it is because some dude came to us with money and said, hey, will you make a horror movie? And we were like with everything I'd been doing up to that point, I was just like, yeah, sure, of course. And so that's when we decided to make the first film I directed, which was called One Too Many Mornings. Mm-hmm. And we just started making it on nights and weekends, like not having any expectations, not really thinking, like just basically trying to do our best and not thinking too hard about like what was going to come of it or anything. And at that time I left Sundance and started working for a record label called Danger Bird, and they're
Danger Bird, yeah.
And so like they had some great bands, like and I would basically make video content for them, including music videos. And so I was able to make some videos for like some great bands like Fits in the Tantrums and Minus the Bear. And I did some like viral video stuff for the Silver Sun Pickups and stuff. And it was really cool. And so like while I was doing that, I was like secretly at nights and weekends making this feature. And eventually, we submitted it to festivals, and I just with Sundance, it was tricky because I had worked there, and I had also seen a lot of former employees who worked there. People would submit films all the time and they wouldn't get in because like the odds are just insane, and so I just submitted it and didn't think anything of it. Like I had no stock in it. I hoped that maybe we'd play other festivals in the following year, but we got the call in like, I think it was November or December of 2009 that we were premiering at Sundance. This thing that we'd spent like 2 years on, we were part of their low budget section. So, I went to Sundance with my first film and we self-released it. And, that was that. I just kept, doing my job, and it wasn't like the life, like people always have this fantasy that you're going to go to Sundance and you're going to walk away with like a 5-picture deal and like your life is set when you leave. I think Sundance is amazing. It's absolutely amazing, but it's not the end all be all of your career. And I had to go right back to work. And so, but the one good thing at that Sundance is I met this producer, Jordan Horowitz, who had the script to Save the Date. And so Save the Date was originally written by these two writers, Egan Reich and Jeffrey Brown. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Brown, like a huge fan of, because he's like this amazing graphic novelist. In fact, since Save the Date, he got really popular with this series of books called Darth Vader and Son, which be familiar with. It's like everywhere. He's been on the New York Times bestseller list and all this. It's amazing. But anyways, I was just a fan of his work, his early work. And so I talked to Jordan, who was there with another independent film called The Kids Are All Right, and which hadn't been nominated for Oscars. It was just at Sundance. And so I basically wrote to him and was like, I hear you have the script. I'd love to be involved, blah, blah, blah. We met up there, and I worked on the script throughout the year. And so the following year, so I'm getting to the end of this story. I got laid off from my job at Danger Bird, and I had been sort of working on the script to Save the Date at the same time. And I was just like, all right, what am I doing? Like, I am not yet fully a full-time filmmaker. Like I'm sort of on the cusp of doing what I want to do, but I still have this day job, and I still, it's still tricky. So what I decided to do was like right when I got laid off, and this is like they cut the staff in half basically. So what I did was I told all my collaborators, I was like, let's make a short film in 2 weeks. Let's not give a fuck. Let's just make something in the same style that we made the music videos, because the music videos you have to work really super quick, and I had to operate a little bit more on instinct. Whereas like my first feature with 2 years, you're able to like almost overthink things to some degree sometimes. And so we cranked out this short film called X Sex, and the timing just worked out in that X Sex premiered at Sundance in 2011, and at the same time the script for Save the Date was now completed. I'd sort of done my own work on it, and at the same time Jordan, The Kids Are All Right got nominated for Oscars, and so coming out of Sundance 2011, it was like this perfect storm of energy and momentum that launched us into Save the Date, and that's how we got Save the Date off the ground. So that's my story. That's the whole.
No, that's awesome. So you made? I was just going over your IMDb earlier, and you make a lot of short films.
Oh, and that IMDb only has like a tiny fraction of made prior to my first feature. Yeah. But I think that like the most important thing when you're making tons of stuff is that it makes it easier to be less precious about it to some extent. Where I know a lot of filmmakers where they put so much stock into their work where it's like, this has to be the one. Like, I'm going to make a short film, be perfect, and it has to get into Sundance. And if it doesn't, I'm a failure at life. And it's just like, no, you're not. Just, make 10 short films. Like, think of it that way. Think of this as being like just the next step in your career, or something that you're interested, or something that you want to learn from, or, if you're going to treat it like an exercise, do that and like figure out like, all right, I want to figure out what my visual style is. And I want to do something that's all handheld, and like, let me see how I like that and how it vibes with what I do. And I don't know, there's different ways you can sort of approach it that make it a little bit easier,
No, definitely. It's basically, it's like trial and error. I want to try something out. Let's just experiment.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing and it's so much easier now than when I was doing it before, where like you literally don't need any money at all. Like back when I was doing these films for actors, like the very bare minimum, I needed someone to buy a tape. And you don't even need that anymore. If you get the camera with the cards in it, you've got what you need.
Right. Yeah, no, but yeah, I don't know. I always have just a huge soft place in my heart for short films, just because I don't know. I still enjoy them. So.
And it's funny how like things are changing. Where like right now I'm starting to work in advertising a little bit, and like people want short films now for their brands. You know what I mean? So it's like it's now. I feel like the whole idea of like. It's just crazy. I was watching this thing with Kevin Spacey, like talking about television the other day, right? And this is a little bit of a jump, but like it's almost like content is content. Like whereas like people like us, we are aware that there are movies, and movies are normally 2 hours, and there are TV shows, and TV shows are normally a certain length, and there are short films, and short films are a certain length. Whereas now with binge watching and movies that are on VOD, it's just all stories, you know. It doesn't matter what bucket they fall in, whether it's like, so it's like almost like every short film should just be, or every film should just be the length it needs to be, regardless of how it's consumed or what umbrella it used to fall into, But it's funny, I didn't think I was going to do much, all that much short work. I don't know, my English is not coming out correct. I thought I was done with short films in some way after Save the Date, and then like a friend of mine was like, he was releasing a book, this really rad book of short stories. He actually brought me in to make a series of short films for his book, and then it was so much fun that now I'm trying to do that more and more, because it's another way to like just keep learning and keep sharpening your tools,
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I that was the This Is How You Die.
Yeah. This is.
I saw that earlier. It was pretty. It was very interesting. It was very funny.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was like, but it's not great. Is that it doesn't count? You know what I mean? Like I can sort of make that, and it's like it's there, and it's fun. And I learned like with that one specifically, it was like, all right, I'm going to learn a little bit more how to work with visual effects. I had no experience with that up to that point. Like aside from like really like dumb practical things, like like I want to learn how CG integrates with what you shoot, and it served that purpose. You know, I sort of took a baby step in that direction to get more of that under my belt. You know,
and now you're going to go work on Green Lantern. But let's talk about Save the Date.
Huh? Yeah.
So you talked a little bit on how. Oh well, first we talked about Save the Date. Just aside, did you get to meet the Broken Lizard crew after your email comment?
No, I met very briefly Jade Chandrasekhar at like a barbecue, but he would never remember, and I don't think he ever saw the email or anything like that. But
okay.
No, but what's funny is that one of the guys from the beginning of Super Troopers, one of those Stone guys, was played by Jeffrey Arend, who I cast in Save the Date. So there is a little bit of like weird synergy there.
Well, you mentioned casting. So you have this the script and you're ready to take it into production. How do you assemble a cast like this?
I mean, I'll say this. I was lucky. We had this groundswell of energy already. And so when we sent it out to actors, they paid attention. It wasn't like we were sending it out without, sending it out blindly. And so how we put together the cast for Save the Date is like I'm just a big, freaks and geeks nerd, community nerd, I became a party down nerd casting. And so like I sent it, the only role that I had someone in mind for from the get-go was I wrote, when I was working on the character of Andrew, I knew it was going to be Martin Starr. And everything he's been in, he brings this level of soul to his work, and I'd never seen him play like, he's constantly sort of being cast as like the nerd character, and
the angry character. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'd seen some photos of him with his glasses off, and it's like, fucking like Clark Kent Superman. He's a handsome dude. And so, I sent it to him first. And so we got him interested. I sat down to like coffee with him, and I was so nervous, because this is like a big step for me, so he was interested first. Then I wanted to go out to Jeffrey Arend just because I've loved him and everything he's been in, and similarly, he's like a guy who's like he's got this great face, and he's really handsome, and I want to see more actors like that in lead roles, And so when I sat down with Jeffrey, I told him that Martin was interested and whatnot. And he's like, "Oh, Martin and I are friends. We've been looking for a project to do for a long time." Like he was going to be at his bachelor party or something. So like they were already friends. That was nice. And then from there, I was thinking about who was going to play Sarah when I discovered Party Down then. And that was back when it was on Netflix. And, I watched it all. I watched the whole thing in like one or two chunks. Like it was literally like Tuesday, Wednesday. I had watched the entire thing. At the end of it, I was just like, "Who is Lizzie Kaplan?" And I looked up all the rest of her stuff, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's that girl! Oh my god, she's amazing." And so, we reached out to her next, and like in terms of like officially, like we want you to be in this movie, and her manager read it and liked it for her. And she had sort of sworn off doing independent films for a while because she had done like 3 independent films back to back to back. And so she thought she was going to take a break from them, but then she read the script and was in. And so, when I sat down with her, I knew based on, when I made X-Sex, the short film, it's a very, very intimate, short where like there's a pretty a steamy sex scene in the middle of it, and when I was casting that, I had the actress like have approval over the actor. Like I wanted to make sure that she was in the room when we were casting the guy, and it really worked out because like we all ended up agreeing on the same actor, this guy named Jacob, who's like just amazing actor, and their chemistry, like there was a chemistry there to it. And so I had been waiting to cast the Jonathan role until Lizzie was fully in, because I wanted her to have a say in it, But I really, really wanted Mark Webber for that part, because I think he is just amazing, and everything I've seen him in has been great. And like look on IMDb, like he's been in just all these amazing films like Broken Flowers and Scott Pilgrim, storytelling. Like he's
Snow Day,
exactly. but he's worked with all these amazing directors, and he's such a chameleon. And he's another one of these guys that's never really played like sort of like up to that point hadn't really played the traditional like sort of leading male, like his characters are always sort of on the fringe a little bit.
Right.
His character is the exact opposite of that, and so I was really excited by that. And when I sat down with Lizzie, I was like ready. I like had in my head like I was ready to pitch her on Mark Webber. And I sit down with her, and she's like, "Okay, so here I want to talk to you about Jonathan because it's really important that we cast someone awesome in that part, and that it's someone I can jive with." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And she's like, "Okay, so there's this guy you've never heard of him, Mark Webber," and I'm like, "Dude, that's who I want too." And it was like the most amazing thing. So then when we reached out to Mark, and we were like, "Hey, Mark, we all want you to be in this movie. Will you please be in this movie?" And he graciously agreed to do it. And then after that, Allison was the last piece. And, I just knew that we needed to cast someone who could realistically like look somewhat like Lizzie, and Allison was just, she's amazing. Like as an actor, she's like a acting robot. Like she is so good and so on, and by that point we had all this momentum. We had out the rest of the cast, so she knew who she was going to be hanging out with. And yeah, so I Skyped with her when she was in Michigan, working on the 5-year engagement. And that's when she came on board. And that was that. So it all sort of like all the pieces just sort of came into place, and everyone was sort of friends with each other already. And Melanie Diaz, Melanie was just a casual friend from the film festival world who's, having a real moment right now with Fruitvale Station,
Yeah.
She had like just, this little part in ours, but like, she's awesome, and it was just cool to have like this community of people that felt like as I was bringing my crew to the table who are all friends and real friends, like we hang out in real life. Like last night I was over at my cinematographer's house. He's not my cinematographer. He's my friend first, and we were playing board games, and when the cast came and they saw that mindset and they themselves were friends, it just felt like it was a really special, like, just easy going shoot,
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's how they all came together.
Right. And how long was the shoot, Dave, or the filming schedule for?
It was really quick. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, and so it was like 20 days.
Mm-hmm.
Which we had the only thing that was like really challenging with that particular script is that there are a surprising number of locations. Mm-hmm. Like difficult locations, they're all like apartments and like clubs and whatnot. But there were like 36 locations, so to do 36 locations in 20 days was a little bit of a challenge. But I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to shoot it so simply. And like a lot of the scenes take place just like are just done in one take, where it's like a wide shot that zooms into a close up, was because of that. Because we knew like, all right, that's an aesthetic that we know we can fully achieve with this ruling schedule. Right. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I do like how you shot it, because it's not one of those movies that I feel like I'm in the way. It feels like I'm just kind of observing what is going on in these people's life. And that was kind of cool, because a lot of movies they make you feel like you have to be in the center of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not like the story of the film is that deep, Mm-hmm. And the characters, like their arcs, they're not going. It's not like books where you have like some innocent kid from Torrance turning into a drug-addled porn star. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with a girl who's a little bit closed off, opening up just a teeny bit, so the drama in the movie is not all that heavy, and so for us it was just like, all right, this is going to be a really light movie. Like we're just going to have a light touch with it and just let the actors do all the work, hang back, and just really just let them do all the work. And what's really satisfying when you do that is that when you're on set, like half the times you sort of, in my mind, I know how it's going to cut together. If you're doing a scene with like tons of coverage, you just sort of your mental checklist of like, okay, I think that's how this is going to fit together. But nobody else on set really knows how that plan's going to work. They kind of do, but when you do, like for instance, there's a scene where they're on a pier and they literally like walk around the corner in a wide shot, they walk into a medium, and the camera dollies back 100 feet as they do their conversation, and it doesn't cut. It's 3 minutes of the movie. It's just really satisfying for everybody, because once you get it and you move on and you don't get any other coverage, everyone on the crew knows the movie that you're making. Mm-hmm. And can even feel like, yeah, that take 7 and take 9, those were great. If those end up in the movie, I'm going to be happy, versus not really kind of knowing how it's going to go. And so, like, just from that standpoint, it's really satisfying as well. And I don't know, I'm going to keep experimenting with that. I think there are some times where it's good, and there's other times where the only thing when you do something like that, it's like you can't cut out lines in the middle of the take.
Right, yeah.
We're definitely stuck with it. And so yeah. And it's also, really, it's also like Jeffrey's books. If you read Jeffrey Brown's novels, they're very much just like, it's just like little anecdotes from life that happen. And so he's never imposing his own viewpoint in it in the way he draws. Mm-hmm. He just like presents it. And so I feel like we did it to stay true to that too.
And just because I'm curious, what did you shoot on? What kind of cameras?
Oh yeah, we shot on the Arri Alexa, which I think is what everybody's shooting on now. Okay. We had this like giant lens. It was like this. I want to say it was like a 50 to 200 or 25 to 200 lens. Yeah, that's what it was. 25 to 200 lens. So the lens was actually like twice the size of the camera. Allowed us to do all the zooms and stuff that give it sort of that retro feel, and like the first zoom in the movie, we put a doubler on it, so it's like. It was a 25 to 400, because that first shot we went from 50 to 800. Giant lens, old school lens that people really don't use anymore, but give a little bit of a retro feel.
Oh, that's cool. So do you have anything coming up, or are you writing a script right now or anything like that?
I have a couple projects going right now that it's like everything, you're just sort of like waiting, you're pushing the rock up the hill, and so I'm working on a drama a script that's kind of in the vein of like The Big Chill, darker version of that we're trying to get off the ground, and then simultaneous, I'm actually right now in the middle of pitching a TV show that I'm working on with this writer Ben York Jones, who he co-wrote the movie Like Crazy.
Oh yeah.
So he and I have been working on this thing for pretty much the whole year. We're just starting to pitch it right now, and so we'll see what happens with it. But it's funny, like these last couple of years I've been trying to, like, not that I have anything against the independent film world. It's just you can't really pay your bills being a part of it.
Right.
Break out of it, but now I'm seeing what some other filmmakers are doing in the independent film space, and like there is a way to make money at it now. And so I'm also in the middle of writing another script that's actually quite a bit smaller, like actually really, really small, that if none of these projects go, I'll make next year. And so that one I'm really excited about. It's all set in Palm Springs, and hopefully we'll do for Palm Springs what Sideways did for Santa Ynez.
It's not a horror or anything like that?
No. It's about a fertility retreat where people go, and the hope is that they go there for a weekend and come out with a baby.
Okay, those crazy weekends.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so unfortunately, I try to keep a nice tight podcast. So unfortunately, that means we have to stop talking.
Oh, no problem.
But
so much for chatting with me, man, and good luck with your films, and let me know how they go.
Will do. I had a great time talking to you. I can't wait to see what else you do. I mean, whatever you do, just remember you have at least one person watching it, and I'll be there.
Well, thank you so much, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, you take it easy. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.